Hello?
Hello?
Who is this?
Tell me your name, I'll tell you mine.
I don't think so.
What's that noise?
Popcorn.
You making popcorn?
Well, I'm getting ready to watch a video.
Really? What?
Oh, just some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
You never told me your name.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
Someone is playing a deadly game.
It all began with a scream over 911.
Someone who's seen one too many scary movies. Now he's taken his love of fear
Hello?
Hello, Sydney.
one step too far.
Do you like scary movies?
What's the point? They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a scary movie. Number one, you can never have sex. Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!
He didn't make the rules.
Police are always on track if they watch prom night at same time.
He just kills by them. Don't answer the phone. Don't open the door. Don't try to hide.
Everybody, let's not back!
You're not scared, are you?
Scream.
And welcome to a new episode of the Movie Dawgs Show. All right, folks, we're going to talk about a film that was pretty much a game changer in the mid-90s. This film basically redefined and made horror films popular again. And I'm talking about Scream, directed by Wes Craven, written by Kevin Williamson. This film was, just fun as hell. I mean, right now we're in like Scream 7 coming soon or something like that. Of course, that was just, one of those pivotal moments in horror cinema where fans got to see either a resurgence or a renaissance, a rebirth of a genre that we thought was pretty much dried to the bone. We thought that the whale was just done, over with, and it was just, by 1996 when this film came out, horror films were just, basically becoming B-level direct-to-video stuff, and the Halloween franchise was dying, or had pretty much done away when it came to part 6, or we thought. The Friday the 13th series was pretty much dormant. The last film was just like several years before, or just like 4 or 5 years before, with Jason Goes to Hell. Freddy's Dead had been out just like 6 years prior, and then I think Wes Craven, he did it before this, but he did a really great film. Check it out, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. But this film was written by Kevin Williamson, who was known for his another horror film called I Know What You Did Last Summer. He directed a movie called Teaching Mrs. Tingle, I think that's called. And then, of course, he was creator of Dawson's Creek, which, he was able to tap into that teen, young adult subgenre that was really nothing but an embryo at the time, and he was able to really crack the code and really lure kids into, teens and young adults into these back into the theaters to watch this. He was inspired by it. He was house sitting and was talking to a friend on the phone, and they were, kind of making, he thought he heard something outside, and somebody was, his friend over the phone was, making the Jason noise or the Friday the 13th chime. And it kind of gave him an idea about, maybe the serial killer can call, which was kind of also the basis of another film called When a Stranger Calls from the 1970s. But he took that concept one step further because he was also inspired by the murders in Gainesville at the time of the Gainesville Ripper, Danny Elwes, who was tried and convicted of those murders. And I live no more than maybe 30, 40, maybe 50 miles away from Gainesville in my hometown. So it was a real surreal thing. You know, a lot of us were very afraid to even go out, even from being that distance away from Gainesville. It was a college town, the University of Florida. And, you know, there was, you know, college girls being, and I think one guy was being killed on the campuses, you know, places where you thought that they would be safe. And I think that was also the basis for, you know, the Scream 2, you know, that whole college setting. But again, you know, when it comes to that, you know, the movie was originally going to be called Scary Movie, which of course we ended up getting the title Scary Movie for the spoofs. But, you know, they were going to originally, Wes Craven was going to get Drew Barrymore, but because of scheduling, she could not play the character Sydney, which ended up be given to Neve Campbell, who was at the time on the show Party of Five. And a lot of people were very up. I mean, these were some up-and-coming actresses, too. I mean, other than Drew Barrymore, she was the big star. She ended up becoming the Janet Leigh. She ended up setting up the movie and being a MacGuffin. And then, you know, of course, in the scene, she was killed off, you know. And Drew Barrymore, especially in the 90s, Drew Barrymore was my first celebrity crush. Even as a little kid, you know, during E.T., when I was a little kid, we were the same age, I was always, anything Drew Barrymore was in or any picture that Drew Barrymore was on, I was looking, folks. So, and I just had a celebrity crush on Drew Barrymore. But, of course, you had Courtney Cox, who was just hot off from Friends. And, of course, she met her future husband / ex-husband, David Arquette. And, of course, you got other up-and-coming actors like Skeet Ulrich, who was an amazing actor. I don't understand how he just did not explode onto the scene after this film. Matthew Lillard, who we all know became Shaggy in the live-action Scooby-Doo movies, and he even did the voice of Shaggy a few times in the animated form. Jamie Kennedy, of course, we all, you know, Jamie Kennedy would have his own little head and camera show for a while. And then, of course, you know, this was kind of a resurgence for Wes Craven, you know. I mean, he had not had such successful films. I mean, the last film he, I think, did was New Nightmare, which wasn't a successful box office. And then I think Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie Murphy. But, you know, this right here really just opened up the floodgates for a lot of copycat films. And Dimension Films, who was owned by Miramax and the Weinsteins, really, you know, it really gave Dimension Films that bullet to blow open the doors, you know, or blow open the locks and give us a bunch more great horror films, whether it was direct-to-video or not. You know, Dimension Films was like the New Line Cinemas of the 90s, giving us so much horror films. And again, this movie right here just had a really great premise too, and you didn't know who the killer was. It kept you guessing, and it introduced us to a new horror icon, Ghostface, which was just really great. And even for I don't even know nowadays or not, but the guy who did the voice of the Ghostface over the phone, I don't think still to this day he's shown his face anywhere. I could be wrong, but for the longest time he didn't even know who he was. He wouldn't do any interviews or anything like that, and he would just keep the mystique of Ghostface alive and well. What you would call in wrestling terms, kayfabe. He kept kayfabe. He didn't break it. He kept in character, and he kept the mystique about it. But again, you know, the plot and everything, you know, Sydney's father is going on a vacation. They're trying to get over the year passing of her mother dying and being murdered, and of course, they believe that the wrong man's been accused of and sentenced to the murder, who was played by, oh God, what was his name? Liev Schreiber. Liev Schreiber. You know, he was only there in a one little scene where, you know, it was him getting put into a police car on the TV set. But Liev Schreiber, God, folks, you could find anything with Liev Schreiber in it and watch it. That man, another guy that really should have he was in the show Donovan. He did that on Showtime. But man, that guy should have had another one of those great careers. The guy was about acting. He wasn't about famous celebrities. So I think that's probably what worked against him. But again, this movie was Wes Craven showed his directing chops. The show that he could be not just that he still had it, but that that master of suspense, and that he kept especially when it came to the editing, and you don't know who's the killer. You find out, spoiler alert, that it's the boyfriend Billy Loomis, which of course the name Loomis came from Psycho, which is a great nod to that film. And of course, it gave you an encyclopedia of the tropes and the typical setups of horror films. As Jamie Kennedy's there talking. Of course, also the killer was I'm getting ahead of myself, but the killer was Billy Loomis, which played by Steve Lord, and Matthew Lillard. Of course, I'm also forgetting another person, Rose McGowan, who was another beautiful woman, who a very powerful woman too. I mean, say what you will about her politics or whatever, or her viewpoints. She's outspoken, makes her a strong-willed person, and I respect that. And I respect a lot of the films that she's been in. On top of that, being a very beautiful woman. But Jamie Kennedy, and to get back to the point, Jamie Kennedy was, while they were watching Halloween, they were talking about the rules, and I can't get direct when it comes to the rules, but never say that you're coming back, or never have sex, and then no drinking, or he was giving all those tropes that was so popular in horror films throughout the 80s, and that the rules that you must obey to survive a successful horror film. And of course, at the end, the end was a very non-stop, almost like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, minus Texas Chainsaw Massacre barely had any blood. Well, I'll eventually get into that with my friend Warren on the future, no, possibly the next episode. But again, it was just non-stop, go those last 15, 20 minutes. And of course, when, because you thought Billy had died, and then he turns around, and after falling down the stairs, looked like he's bleeding like a pig. He takes the gun from Sydney and everything, and Jamie Kennedy's in there too. And they don't know what's going on. And then he goes, "We all go a little mad." And then quoting Norman Bates from Psycho, and he shoots Jamie Kennedy, thinking that he's dead. And of course, she starts to run away, and then Matthew Lillard's standing there, and he picks up the voice changer saying, "Surprise, Sydney." So, you're getting two killers. And then, of course, what happens after you watch the films, you're like trying to figure out which one of the two were doing the killings at the time. So that was always another little added bonus when you're discussing the film after watching it. My brother and I would sit there and try to figure out, okay, who is that, who was in the mask at the time, who was in the suit. And, but I will say, when it comes to Drew Barrymore's character, it was Stu's character, that, because he dated her and she broke up with him for her boyfriend that he gutted. So that I know it's for set has to be confirmed. But anyway, but then they find out that they were the ones that were responsible for Sydney's mother's death, because Sydney's mother was having relations with Billy's father, which his mother years before had left and abandoned him, and gave him issues. And then of course he blamed her, and then came up with this plot. But you also can figure it out too, if you haven't noticed, folks, that he was planning on dropping everything on Stu. You can just, if you watch it and everything, you realize that Stu is basically bleeding to death. He was going to pin the whole thing on him. So kudos for creativity. Let's say that. But again, it started up a whole new genre, the genre back up, and it opened up a new format, a way to present films. And it also helped, get Halloween H2O going, and a bunch of other horror films that we ended up enjoying along the way throughout the rest of the 90s, and of course into the 2000s. And of course, by the end of the 90s, we got the Blair Witch Project, which kind of gave us the found footage thing, which that helped that genre of horror out. But again, folks, even though I love the second one too, I'll probably get onto that next year. But the original Scream, again, had so much fun, and it kept you guessing. I don't need to tell anybody to check this movie out. I know a lot of people already have, because these new movies are the new Scream movies are coming out, and they're doing great in the box office. So, again, folks, you tell me, what is your favorite scary movie or your favorite horror icon? List it down on the comment section below. What's your favorite memories of Scream? Who did you watch it with? Did you go to the movies? Ladies, were you there with your boyfriend hiding in his arm? It happens. And don't forget, like and subscribe, folks. Let's get those numbers up. Support this channel. And if you haven't yet, check out my sponsors again. Check them out throughout all their social media outlets that they are available on. All right, folks. Next episode, I'm definitely positively sure now, will be Texas Chainsaw Massacre here on the Movie Dawgs Horror Edition. And please, folks, stay safe during the Halloween season, okay? Especially, during Halloween night. All right, folks. That's all the time I got for the Movie Dawgs Show. Thanks for watching. Keep on watching. Bye.